Hey, and welcome into the Big Ten Huddle. I'm your host, Sharon. I've got a lot to talk about going on in the Big Ten. It's the Big Ten Huddle where we cover every single Big Ten team. Got me, JR, and of course, Big Jeff with us here on Thursday night for his Big Jeff's Insights episodes. Jeff's going to have to backtrack a little bit. He said something on our Sunday night show, but he is going to correct himself, be honest with you here. We're also going to get to some of Jeff's big questions about this year. And then at the end, we want to hear your bold predictions for this season. We've given ours, me, Dylan. We've given our bold predictions. We have a few here as well from Twitter that we could go to. But if you're in the chat, if you're listening with us, we want to hear from you as well. So thanks for being here. We appreciate it. Like, subscribe, do all that good stuff on YouTube. And we're glad to have Big Jeff, here with us once again. How you doing, Jeff?
I'm doing good. Yeah, I'm done with my rant that I gave on Sunday night. We'll touch on that a little bit. JR did like a Stephen A. Smith-like rant that was very un-Big Jeff-like. So, yeah, I'm here.
I was going to say, I'm normally the one on here giving rants and going off about something either NCAA or SEC related or something like that. So,
Or Zach. Zach gets his dander up pretty good too. Like when you start talking about SEC or Paul Fraudbaum, like he likes to say, man, does he get fired up.
Yeah, not big fans of the fraud bomb here on this channel, are we? So, but that's all right. That's all right. No fraud bomb in the episode tonight. Let's get to the Coach of the Year stuff. We'll have some people here in the comments as we go, and we'll say hello to them as we get here. But Jeff, let's start with this Coach of the Year stuff. So you went on a rant on Sunday night about Coach of the Year. You didn't want to pick it. But you've done some research, and now your stance has changed a little bit. Tell us what you're thinking.
Yeah, to be clear, so early podcast this week, we talked about who we thought was going to be the Big Ten Coach of the Year, Zach, myself, JR. And before I gave my choice, I said this is the dumbest award in the Big Ten because it rewards mediocrity. It doesn't reward excellence. And I was kind of went on and on about it. And it was based off my perceptions, right? There was a few things that stuck out to me and it caused me to have a certain perception. So I said, after I told Zach and Zayar, I'm going to look up like the last, 30 years of, or 50 plus years of Big Ten Coaches of the Year. And basically my research in doing that told me I was wrong. And I kind of actually like the fact I'm wrong because, the Thursday night Big Jeff's Insights are all about, let's cut through people's perceptions that are often not based on real data. They're based on maybe a couple sample points here. And let's look at the preponderance of the evidence through data to tell us whether that perception is correct or not. In my perception on Big Ten Coach of the Year, that, it's awarded to the coach that maybe went, 3-9 one year, and then the next year they go, 9-3 or 8-4, kind of a mediocre, season in general. And they don't reward like the blue blood programs, the people that go 12-0. I was giving an example where Urban Meyer, dominated the Big Ten in his time, and he didn't win one Big Ten Coach of the Year award. That's probably set JR in my mind that it didn't reward excellence. But if you look at this table here, and I know not everyone could see this, but we have Big Ten Coach of the Year awards going back to 1972. The ones in blue rows, and there's 3 columns here, but the ones in blue rows are 3 what I consider our blue blood programs: Michigan, Ohio State, and Penn State. I grant you, Nebraska is a blue blood, but they haven't acted like one in 20 plus years. So I'm not putting Nebraska in here. But if you could
Nebraska doesn't have a coach on here anyway. So
yeah. And there's a lot of blue blood programs winning Coach of the Year awards. I was really surprised. I mean, Bo Schembechler won 4 times Coach of the Year. Earl Bruce came in, won it. Woody Hayes won once. Even Ryan Day in 2019. I forgot about that. He won it. Harbaugh in 2022 when he had the first, big breakthrough year. So the bottom line is, out of 55 years, 17 out of 55, so that's 31% of the time, it went to a blue blood program who had a really stellar record. Almost all those blue blood had like 1 or 2 losses, JR, a few like 3-loss teams in there. And then highlighted in kind of the brown are the kind of the teams that the coach of the year's team lost 4 or more games. But obviously they got coach of the year because it was still a big rebound from a prior season that was extremely poor. So you're getting your, Pat Fitzgeralds of the world, Jerry Kill for Minnesota, for example, in 2014, Randy Walker, Glenn Mason from Minnesota, et cetera, et cetera. So there's, I count 13 of the 55 are the brown teams where it's 4 or more losses. The teams that had exceptional years from blue blood programs was 17 of 55. So again, my take was completely wrong based on some perceptions, but the numbers speak different. And then you can see on the right here, all the Big Ten teams who have won it. Michigan has won it the most, and they're like a blue blood, right? They're one of the bluest of the blue blood with 8 of 55 years winning Big Ten Coach of the Year. So, wanted to just kind of share that. And just moving forward, I'm going to have takes. And if I later learn that they're not correct, I'm going to say I was wrong, and I think that's what you would like in someone who doesn't dig into their analysis and refuse to change their perceptions. When the data says something different, we need to change our mind on it. So I don't know, JR, if you had any comments on that or any surprises that came out of this information for you.
No, I mean, no real surprises or anything. I remember back there were some blue blood programs that had coaches that won it, like Jim Harbaugh in 2022. Kind of surprising that he didn't win it in 2021, but Mel Tucker did, just kind of bring that team back for that year. He could probably give that award to Kenneth Walker. So, but he got his Coach of the Year award with his contract he got there as well. Didn't I don't know if he got all of that contract or not. Who cares anyway? And then Jim Harbaugh there the next year. I think Russ's question here on Twitter, he says, if Odom takes Purdue to a bowl game, he has to be Coach of the Year, right? It would make sense because in the past, if you look on here, Bill Mallory at Indiana went 6-6 in 1986. Where else? Who was 7? Somebody, John Makovich at Illinois went 6-5-1. Leon Burnett went 7-5 at Purdue, and they made it. I mean, it's happened in the past, but I mean, nobody with less than 8 wins has won the award since. I mean, really since John Makovich in 1988.
Yeah, I would say, Russ, very good chance, but to say for sure, let's say Illinois goes 11-1 or 12-0, which is possible. I think
Brett Bielema probably still wins it even with 10-2, probably. I mean, if they make the playoffs, but yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
It does. At 10-2, I think it depends on also how they look and who they're beating to get to the 10-2, because their schedules, I hate to say it, it's not hard. But yeah, I think they would have a really good chance because that'd be a big turnaround, but it does depend on what others do. And let's say a Minnesota goes 11-1 or 10-2, right? I mean, so there's definitely some scenarios for a team, and they would tend to give, based on this data that I'm seeing here, whoever has that really good season with a higher number of wins, they'd probably favor them against my initial perceptions, which was pretty eye-opening.
Yeah. Russ also has a bold prediction. We'll bring that up when the time comes. But interesting stuff here, Jeff. Appreciate you going back and correcting yourself and having the willingness to go through there. That's good stuff to do. So for those of you who are in the chat, this is going to be your opportunity tonight as we have Big Jeff's questions to ponder. So we'll kind of go through a couple of these. Jeff and I will talk about our answers, and then if you guys have any thoughts or answers to the questions, then we'll go ahead and bring your thoughts, your answers up, and go from there. So here's your opportunity to participate if you would like to do so. Jeff, which one of these questions would you like to start at?
Yeah, I'm going to start with number 1, but I just want to remind the group too, JR asked on X today for bold predictions. for the season for the Big Ten, we would like your bold predictions too. I'd rather not go through all these questions. I think they're pretty interesting. Hopefully, we'll go through one or two of these, and then in the meantime, you guys will be thinking of and posting in the chat your bold predictions for the season, because we'd love to. So many of these have been me sharing all these stats and a lot of information, so I go through it pretty quick, and it's me talking a lot. Kind of tonight's your night to really share what you guys think, and then have JR and I react quickly to it. So yeah, that JR. So I think that's a pretty cool question. Let's talk about question number one, though, while everyone's thinking of their bold prediction. And so if Nick Saban came out of retirement, but he had to coach in the Big Ten, it was given a requirement. He can't coach anywhere else. So I know this is fantasy land, but who would be the ideal team for him to take over? And so I'm going to first answer that, JR, and then let you answer that, all right? Because each would have their own philosophy on it. So I'm thinking in terms of, we always talk about the Big Ten wanting to be supreme to the SEC. And so I'm thinking if we had a wild card great coach like Saban, what team should we plop him into to hopefully just thrive and be excellent that would help us in wanting to be better than the SEC? So I was thinking, JR, of teams where they kind of underachieved, but you have a chance with the right coach just to light it up, right? A USC or Michigan, I'm confident if you put Saban there, definitely can win titles. But maybe the coaches we have in place there already, Sharon Moore and Riley, can already win titles, right? So put them in a place like, how about a Maryland, right? Underachieving program, fertile recruiting territory in that DMV area in the Northeast there. Potentially could turn on some NIL support with Under Armour. If you had the right coach in place, I think it could fire up that NIL. And I'm not an expert at understanding the dynamics of Maryland, so I'm taking a guess there. But for sure, Mike Locksley has shown that he can recruit well there. He just hasn't been able, in my opinion, and many others, to develop those players and keep them to really become kind of a powerhouse. So that was my answer, JR, is plopping Saban in the Maryland, and then along with our other blue, because I think USC is on the right path. I think Nebraska is on the right path. And then Michigan's a question with Sharon Moore, but he's recruiting very well, so that's a good sign. So Maryland's my answer for me, JR, on that one.
Yeah, I think that's an interesting one. I do like Maryland, don't get me wrong, and I think that it's a good answer. However, I feel like if you're gonna have Nick Saban in your conference, if you're using that to try and vie for conference supremacy, I think you need to give him more of a surefire thing that he's not just gonna collect some good teams, but he's actually going to go out and win some national championships and stuff. So my
I
thought
get
process is one of the blue bloods that maybe is not currently acting like a blue blood. USC under Lincoln Riley comes to mind. We'll see what happens this season. Second year of D'Anton Lynn. There's a little bit more excitement and juice there. So I'm not quite out on Lincoln Riley yet, but I do want to see what happens this season. And then Nebraska under Matt Rhule, I mean, I know that if Nick Saban got to Nebraska, he would just kill it right away. I'm going to be honest. I don't know if Matt Rhule has it in him to be a consistent championship contender year in and year out. Does he have the ability to have some really good teams and go out there and get double-digit wins? Sure. We saw him do it with Temple. We saw him do it with Baylor. Like he has the ability to do that with Nebraska. But I want Nick Saban to come in and start winning championships with one of these Big Ten teams. Ohio State can win championships with Ryan Day. I believe James Franklin can win championships at Penn State. We'll see if it happens this year or not. Lincoln Riley can at the very least get to the playoffs with USC. They nearly did it their first year. In my opinion, it's either Nebraska or Michigan. I think Michigan, even if they move on from Sharon Moore, they're going to find a good coach. So I'm not too concerned about that. It's more so just this crazy lack of, ability, lack of luck, whatever you want to call it, that Nebraska has, that it's like, all right, just go throw Saban over there because we did not bring Nebraska into this conference to be a bottom feeder. But that's kind of what they've been, at least since, Scott Frost and some other coaches, Mike Riley and them were there. So I think Nebraska would probably be my answer. If I had to give a second one, it'd probably either be USC or Michigan, pending based off what happens this season.
Yeah, and I can't disagree with you, JR, because I almost went that route too. That's why I mentioned. But then I thought, well, what if those programs, which already seem like they're on a good path, continue? But with Saban, it would happen, right? With the current coaches there, maybe it will happen. That's the problem. So I don't have any issue with your answer, frankly, because at the end of the day, championships speak loudest than anything. Depth of conference still matters a lot, but depth of conference is harder to prove. A championship just beats you over the head with it, right? You've got the trump card. Bam, we're the national champs, as we know with the being that from the last 2 years. So.
Definitely. Russ has an opinion as well. Russ said Penn State because he'd only do it for a blue blood, and they might look to make a move since they can't get over that natty hump with Franklin. Yeah, we'll see what happens this year. I can definitely see the thought process there of pending with Franklin at Penn State, kind of like what I said about Michigan and USC. And then he says, continuing on to that, he says, Franklin, because he's a top 5 coach in the country, just hasn't gotten over the natty hump yet. Franklin, I think I had him 6th in my coaches' rankings, either 6th or 7th, but he's definitely there on the fringe of top 5. It's really, that natty hump he needs to get over. So, but I don't know, like Penn State, Nick Saban can recruit anywhere. It's not like he has to have a fertile recruiting ground.
Yeah.
But Penn State, they have like the DMV and stuff like that, but it's not exactly, Pennsylvania that's, bursting with talent like a Texas or a California or a Georgia or something like that.
Yeah.
So
I think if Saban had his choice, like, cause we're plopping him wherever we want, I think he would do USC. Now, if you get over, does he really want to live in Southern California? I'm not even thinking of that, and his
I'm not even
wife.
thinking of that. Yeah.
So, assuming that's all okay, USC is the one that, with all that talent in California, and really no one's. He knows he would dominate it, right? Whereas,
he dominated getting talent from California at Alabama. He got tons of talent at Alabama from California to get Alabama.
He would lock it down, kind of, right? He would lock down California, and it would be nasty.
Yeah. All right. Let's do one more question, and then we can take a look at some bold.
Do you have one that you would like to do, JR? I could leave it up to you. One that you interest you, because.
Yeah. So let's talk through. Let's talk through number 4. What does Indiana's regular season record need to be to prove last year was not a fluke? So this is interesting. If you're in the chat or on Twitter, feel free to answer this yourself as well. How many wins do you think in the regular season, don't include bowl wins, in the regular season, how many wins does Indiana need to prove that last season was not a fluke and they are indeed, at the very least, a top 20 team? That's what people need to start considering them with Kirk Cinetti, a top 20-esque team out there. You want me to give my answer first, Jeff?
Yeah.
Or you want to give yours?
Well, because I gave the first last time. Why don't you go ahead?
I think Indiana needs to have at least 9 wins to, have an argument for saying we are not, that was not a schedule or anything like that we were lucky or anything like that, but we can go out and we can beat the teams that are under the second tier in the Big Ten, and we can even beat a second tier team or two, that being either Illinois or Iowa, right? I think if you lose to both Oregon and Penn State, that's really annoying. mean? But I don't think that really changes the perception of Indiana all that much, because they probably get the similar perception that like in Iowa does, or name your other team that's been up there. I don't think Indiana's going to get the perception of Michigan unless they come out this season and go 11-1. But I don't necessarily feel like you need to have that perception right away. I think Indiana, to remain consistent, needs to win at least 9 games. I think if they win at least 8 games, fans should be happy. I mean, you look at what this program was before Kurt Sinati took over. I mean, heck, if they win 7 games, fans should be happy because of where this program was. Again, I don't think they're going to win 7 or 8 games. I picked them to win 9 or more, is what I said in the predictions. But I do think that Indiana needs to take care of business against one of these kind of tier 2 teams in the Big Ten that they play. And then if they lose to both Oregon and Penn State, it sucks. Don't get me wrong, but it's not like people are gonna, say, "Oh, Indiana, they're a nothing program. Nobody cares about them."
Yeah, so I'm aligned with you, JR. So basically, doing math, everyone knows. Well, maybe not everyone. Indiana's non-conference schedule is really bad, and it will remain so till they play Notre Dame about 4 years out. Old Dominion, Kennesaw State, Indiana State. Basically, they'll be 3-0. If they go 8-4, that means in the Big Ten they'll be 5-4. So 8-4 overall is not good enough to prove last year was not a fluke in my book. To me, people will look at the Big Ten record because they're going to say, "Oh, the 3-0, yeah, anybody could do that," and I would kind of agree. Most Big Ten teams are going to be 3-0. So 9-3 would be the minimum, JR. And I think that would, they'll get it done. You're 6-3 in the Big Ten. I didn't have the stat right in front of me, but I just know from last year writing about it, I think Indiana in the last 30 years has only had 3 seasons where they had a Big Ten winning record. It's that bad, right? So to your point, JR, if they were 5-4 in reality, historically, that's not a bad season for Indiana, especially because the Big Ten's a lot better than it used to be, adding the Pac-12 teams. But I live down here in Atlanta, SEC country, the heart of it all. They need to go 9-3 for people to say, okay, that's not playoff worthy probably, but really, last year looks better, right? It's if you're consistently winning, that's going to change perceptions. And it's interesting. I listen to a lot of Indiana podcasts, and one thing they say that I think is wrong is, the expectations for us that we had to beat Ohio State, that's just unfair because no one has been beating Ohio State other than Michigan. No, what people wanted to see is Indiana go into the fourth quarter against Ohio State with a chance to win in the fourth quarter. That didn't happen. That was the bigger problem. Obviously, if they would have won, that would have convinced everyone. But the fact that it got to the fourth quarter and the game was over, that was the problem. So, Indiana people, and I'm an Indiana grad, we just need to keep winning. And it doesn't mean need to go 10-2. We just can't fall back to going, under 500 in the Big Ten. So there, I'm with you, though, minimum of 9-3. And I think really the perception of Indiana, 1 year is not going to change a perception, even if it was a great year. You have to put it together multiple years. It's the same with the Big Ten in their fight against the SEC. It's great we have 2 years, but I heard someone on a podcast say 3 years is a streak. 2 years is great, but 3 years is a streak. So if we can win 3 in a row, for example, as far as national championships, then we have big time bragging rights. That's more than a trend, right? So anyway,
yeah, I think that makes sense. Russ over on Twitter says at least 9-3 in the regular season. Russ says.
I agree.
So he's agreeing with me there. Joey Z, thanks for being here. Going back to that Nick Saban question, he says Saban at Michigan State, going back to Michigan State. I mean, that'd be cool. Don't get me wrong, but just a fun little hypothetical question. And then Jake is here letting us know. Hey, Jake, thanks for being here, man. We appreciate it. All right. Jeff, let's get to some of these bold predictions. I did put that question of the Indiana wins needed to prove it wasn't a fluke last year in the chat. So if you want to vote on that poll, we can go to that eventually. But let's go ahead and get to some of these bold predictions. We will start with. So I got it here in the middle, but we're going to start with Russ because Russ commented it here. It says Ryan Brown is going to wreck Brown, however you pronounce it, Illinois' college football playoff chances this season after coming up just short last season. So Russ is on the Ryan Brown Purdue quarterback train to get the avenge the loss last year. What do you think about that, Jeff?
So this is after Illinois has their stretch where they play at Indiana, USC at home, then they go on the road to Purdue. That's 3 consecutive weeks. So I'm liking that just from the perspective of, whether they win or lose those 2 prior weeks, there's kind of that letdown. And then the next week after Purdue is against Ohio State. So that's in between. So from that perspective, I like the setting, Russ. The only thing is I have no idea what Purdue's going to be like, JR, right? I mean, so I do think from a perspective of where it falls on the schedule, it's ripe for something to happen. But the question is, will Purdue have the horses to pull it off? Because Bielema, they're a good, well-coached team, right? And we do know that Altmaier is not going to turn the ball over. So you're going to have to earn it, so to speak, right on the field. Those are my thoughts. Oh, JR, I can't hear you, JR.
Sorry, I was muted. If you're just now joining us, thanks for being here. We are going through your bold predictions. So we have some here on Twitter. If you're in the YouTube chat, go ahead and throw those in there, or in the Twitter chat. Go ahead and throw those in there, and we'll bring your bold predictions up here. We want to see what you guys have to say. So we did question bold predictions on Twitter last night, and we'll go through some of those. So Sound the Siren, friends of the podcast, they said Indiana will finish ahead of Illinois in the standings. Washington will beat 2 out of 3 of Ohio State, Illinois, and Oregon, and maybe even all 3. And then Michigan won't even be in the playoff picture. Jeff, I'm going to ask this to you. Which one of those 3 do you find to be the most bold? That Indiana will finish ahead of Illinois in the standings, that Washington will beat 2 or 3, maybe even all 3 of Ohio State, Illinois, and Oregon, or that Michigan won't even be in the playoff picture? Which one's the most bold?
Yeah, process elimination. So I actually have Indiana beating Illinois, and then both, let's see their records here just so I can check myself. Indiana, Illinois, basically tying same record in the Big Ten, but Indiana would have beaten them, so Indiana would be better. Michigan not in the playoff picture with a true freshman quarterback. That one's not crazy at all. That's not super bold, and that's not a dig at Michigan. It's just this is, they're going with the young guy. It will pay dividends down the road. It just might not this year. Maybe it will. I don't know. Clearly, if Washington beats 2 of the 3, let alone all 3, that's bold. That's bold for sure. Looking at the schedule there, Washington, Ohio State at home, Oregon at home, and Illinois at home. So they are all 3 at home. So I could see why he's using that. Washington, I think, has the longest home winning streak in the nation, right? Isn't that the stat?
Second longest. Georgia's the longest.
Who's Georgia? I don't even know what. I'm not familiar. Oh, wait a minute. I live in Georgia. I know it there. Yeah, that's pretty bold. But, DeMond Williams Jr. gives them that high upside. So, and my big upset pick of the year is Ohio State losing at Washington. I still have Ohio State making the playoffs and going 10-2. But so from that perspective, yeah, I do think they're going to get one of those upsets.
Yeah, I think if I'm being honest here, I don't think all 3 of those are the most bold ever, right? We saw Michigan be ranked in the top 15 at the beginning of last year, and then they fell off. and they weren't even in the playoff picture last year. I think that was probably a little bit more surprising because of all the hype and then the quarterback situation a week before their first game with, like, it wasn't Alex Orji, it was Davis Warren. So I think this season there are many people that are like, Michigan should be good, but they're just a little skeptical. And that's kind of what I was getting to when we went through our Big Ten preview picks a little bit. So I don't think that one is the most bold to say they won't make the playoffs. It's talking about not even being in the playoff picture with that schedule that makes it a little bit more,
Right.
bold there. But I think that middle one, Washington will beat two of the three, or maybe even all three of Ohio State, Illinois, and Oregon. It's not super bold because they do get all three of them at home, but it's just the fact of beating that many of those three that does make it a little bit bolder. So that's the one I'll go with. All right. KC says USC will make the playoffs. Bold or not, Jeff?
I have USC as we covered in the podcast earlier, the team that has the most upside against where I picked them. So I had them as 8-4 overall, 6-3 in the Big Ten, but definitely could see them higher and definitely could see them making the playoffs. And they have a coach who has experience and knows how to make the playoffs. They have a defensive coordinator that has shown big improvement in the defense. And if they take another step, it's going to come down to their quarterback playing well. So, yeah, I mean, I don't think that it's pretty bold because their over under is 7.5. So right there, right, Vegas is saying 7.5. That's fairly low and kind of surprising to me. But I do think they have a big upside, and I would not be shocked if USC made the playoffs.
Yeah, I wouldn't be shocked either, but just based off their past two seasons, it does have a boldness factor to it. So it is bold, but not super bold. USC's got a chance this season to do that. All right, Jack says if Oregon wins in Iowa, Minnesota will win next week at Autzen. Bold or not, Jeff? What are your thoughts?
So
if Oregon wins in Iowa, so Oregon goes to Iowa. If Oregon wins that game at Iowa, Minnesota will win the following week at Autzen. So on the road.
Oh, man, Minnesota. That's really bold. Yeah. I mean, if it were at Iowa and then at Minnesota again, but coming home from the friendly confines, they've got to bye, then play at Iowa and then versus Minnesota. So it's not like they're going to be road weary or, game weary. So I think that's really bold because I don't see that happening. And I like PJ Fleck in Minnesota. I have them going 8-4, by the way, which is, damn good over their 6.5 over and under. So that's quite bold.
Yeah, if you're a 6.5 win total and you go into a team with a 10.5 win total and you win on the road, that'd be pretty doggone impressive. So yeah, that's a bold one there, Jack. I like this one from Brett. He's don't have to talk about it very much, but it's funny. It says Nebraska will maul Houston Baptist. I'm too conditioned to perennial disappointment to go beyond that. So Brett, Brett's just hoping for an out of conference win for Nebraska over Houston Baptist.
JR, I have to say about Nebraska, it's amazing the variance of either super optimistic about Rhule and this team, and I got lambasted for saying I don't think, Nebraska to win a title, they just need way more depth to make a run of 3 or 4 games in the playoffs, and I got lambasted for it. And then others are more like him, where it's like, kind of like many fans are, need to see it to believe it. Doesn't seem to be that many in the middle. It's like you're either really pessimistic or super optimistic with the Nebraska fans. I don't know. That's just kind of been my experience this year.
Yeah. If we ever say anything bad about them on Twitter, we definitely hear about it. But if we ever say anything good, they're quick to let us know that they like that too. So it's just a really big fan base, and one that honestly, if Nebraska turns it around and they start vying for those national championships, people are going to start discovering how big and how bold that fan base is. All right. Albert Jefferson says Iowa will beat Oregon. Iowa at home. Many people talking about the difficult schedule for Iowa this season, but Albert thinks that Iowa will beat Oregon. Bold or not, Jeff?
So it is off a bye, but Iowa, they never played there. Don't know what to expect. They did play in Camp Randall, which I've
No,
been to a
it's
game.
home for Iowa. Iowa's at home.
Right, at Iowa. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I was just saying Oregon's never played at
Oh,
Iowa
okay. Sorry, I thought you were
recently.
saying Iowa's never played
Yeah,
at Oregon. Sorry.
recently at least. Maybe they played way back when, right? But not this staff or anything. They did play at Wisconsin, so it's a relatively similar. Although that Wisconsin, I think that atmosphere was really good because it was more of a night game, even though Wisconsin was struggling. Yeah, I mean, any game at Iowa is a risk to get upset. So, I, I actually have Oregon losing that game, so I don't disagree with it. Oregon clearly has more talent, but anytime you come into that environment, they're just really tough to beat at home and well coached.
Yeah. Yeah, I tend to not think that the single games this team will upset this team are very bold. I mean, it's college football. There's upsets. I know Oregon's tier 1 program, but, Iowa's a tier 2 program. They should be expected to be able to beat Oregon at home. So, not too bold for me. All right, Dustin says Ja'Cory Barney makes first team All Big Ten. Ja'Cory Barney, wide receiver, Nebraska, freshman last year, had a good show out. Didn't have the biggest stats in the world, but definitely played well and showcased some talent. He got some expectations this year. I don't know if Dustin is saying he's expecting that. Oh, he's not. He's saying it's a bold prediction that Ja'Cory Barney could make first team All Big Ten. With all the other wide receivers in the Big Ten this season, Jeff, this is pretty bold to me. What do you think?
That's quite bold. So we all know Jeremiah Smith, highly likely.
He's going to have to beat out Jeremiah Smith, Mekhi Lemon, Elijah Surratt, Denzel Boston. I'm probably going to miss somebody here, and somebody's going to be in the comments telling me about it. Yeah, you'd have to beat out a number of really good wide receivers to be first team All Big Ten there.
Yeah, the other thing I would say, if that happened, Nebraska's going to have one hell of a year, right? I mean, so I like it. I like it because it's bold, so very, very interesting. And I do expect Raiola to take a big jump in, second season under Holgorsen. He only had a partial season last year. I think there's definitely something to be said for that. I mean, a coordinator that is calling plays that puts their quarterback in a comfort zone. I mean, it's understated how much that means, right? To really understand what are your strengths. Let's call plays and run an offense that they're very comfortable with. Let's adapt our philosophy to our personnel versus, we're Nebraska and we do it this way, right? I do think that upside is there. I don't know if that'd be quite a stretch though if that guy made first team All Big Ten though.
Yeah, I agree. T Dub says USC wins 9+ games. We said USC makes the playoffs. I don't think this one's too bold. USC should be expected to win at least 9 games this season.
Yeah, I agree. I don't know is he a USC fan? I think he was maybe a Washington guy.
Oregon fan.
Yeah. I don't disagree. They're a very, very talented team. They just need to put it together. And, they lost whatever it was, 4 games where they're leading in the fourth quarter and ended up losing it. They're 4-5 in 1-score games, but 4 of those were with blown fourth quarter leads. So I thought last year they should have been a 9-4 team anyway. So yeah, I don't think that's real bold. I think that's probably a good prediction potentially.
C right under him says Minnesota will make the playoffs. That would be pretty bold if that happened.
Yeah, because this gets into Jared, we haven't talked about this a lot, but 10-2, I think almost any Power 4 conference highly likely to make it. Not for sure, but highly likely. So, I think he's saying here they would be 10-2. Their non-conference is not going to make you go crazy here. They have Oregon and Ohio State. What would help is if one of those wins, if they get to 10 wins, if one of those wins is against Oregon or Ohio State, they're in for sure, right? If they go 9-3 and one of those wins is at Ohio State or at Oregon, maybe, but it would depend on what other teams do, what SEC teams do, etc. That's very bold, though.
Yeah, I mean, you'd have to beat either or Ohio State or Oregon, one of those two, and then if you lost to both of those two, you would need a lot of help from, Nebraska, Iowa, and Wisconsin to be teams that are ranked teams when you play them, which Nebraska could. Don't get me wrong. I mean, Nebraska they could be 6-0 going into that Minnesota game and be in the top 20, top 15 at that point in time. Iowa, they could be coming off just one loss to Penn State there. And if they're only coming off one loss, then they're what? 5-1 there. Iowa would probably be a ranked team too. So it's not totally unheard of with the way the schedule shakes out. You would just need some help from, number one, Big Ten teams being good and being ranked like Iowa and Nebraska. And then number two, you would need some help from SEC teams not being as
And
good as they
remember,
should be.
people make a big deal out of, well, the AP poll factors in you beat a team who at one time was in the top 25. I can tell you the committee, I give them credit. They're consistent with that. They don't care if you were ranked early in the year or whatever. It's in their college football poll at the time when it gets down to the end. Who did you beat among their top 25? The committee's top 25. That's what matters.
Yeah, agreed. All right, we'll do the last one here, Jeff. Not trying to skip the other people, but just want to do this last one because we're going to try to stay under 45 minutes.
Yep.
Cobalt says SEC dominates the playoffs, and the title game features any of Bama, LSU, Texas, and Georgia, maybe Notre Dame, but they're looking at getting back to the all SEC national championship games here. Jeff, you're the more measured one of the conference stuff. I would say I have Big Ten bias. I know that, and I don't, try to say I don't because I know I do. But you're the more measured one here. Do you think this is bold?
Yes. So what I think, I'd be surprised. I'd be surprised if the SEC dominates the playoffs. I do think the SEC is going to get 4 in the Big Ten. Hopefully we'll get 4. So we're going to have 8 of the 12. But between, I do believe Oregon, Penn State, and Ohio State, if they all make it, I don't think all 3 are going to lose early round games. But then as far as who could make the final, that is a different conversation. I do think Bama is super talented. It's going to come down, is that quarterback good? And he's inexperienced, but he's been around. Texas, super talented. Yes, they also lost a lot of talent, but they've got a ton of young talent. So I know the same with Ohio State. Oh, they lost all that talent, but that's where recruiting comes in. These guys have been factories the last 3 or 4 years. Same thing for Georgia. The one I have issue with is LSU. I'm not there on that. I don't agree with them. I'm not saying they couldn't make the playoffs or whatever, but I don't see them making a run to be in the final 2 teams. So LSU, I don't think so. Mm-hmm. And then Notre Dame, CJ Carr needs to be a dude, to go far. So I guess bottom line, JR, I do not think the SEC dominates the playoffs, but could the SEC end up with 2 teams in it? They've got some really good ones, super talented. I mean, Bama, Georgia, and Texas are recruiting machines. And I'm big on recruiting, as everyone knows. So Those are my thoughts.
Yeah, I agree with you on LSU. That offensive line, I don't think is going to be nearly as good as it was last year. They've recruited at a good level, but I'm just not seeing the consistent development to be able to, year after year, continually just replenish talent from Brian Kelly, especially in this more modern era of the game. And then also, we got to see a much better defense out of LSU if we're going to, be confident in them being able to make a national championship game. And then Notre Dame, I had Notre Dame winning. I had Notre Dame losing. I had them being a 4 seed in the playoffs, and I think that's more because of a easier schedule than anything else. I think they probably lose to either Texas A&M or Miami, and then they win the rest of their schedule, so that puts them in the top 4 of the playoffs. But I think they lose to whoever the 5 seed is or whoever the next one is that faces off against them, because a team like Oregon, Alabama, Ohio State, Texas, Georgia, I mean, these are the teams that are, going to be probably 5 seeds for you. They would just be too much for this Notre Dame team with CJ Carr, who didn't really, people weren't expecting him to win the job, and then all of a sudden he wins the job. So maybe he plays better than people think this season, but there's some possible issue there. But yeah, we'll see. I don't think it's crazy to say Bama, Texas, and Georgia, 2 of those 3 will be in the national championship game. I don't think that's crazy to say. It could happen. Yep. But, I mean, it's happened before. Just hasn't happened the past 2 years. So it'll be on the SEC this year to, make it happen. So a little bold, but I wouldn't say the most bold.
Agreed.
So, all right. Hey, everybody, we appreciate you being here. A little bit of a different Big Jeff's Insights episode, hearing from you all. We appreciate all those who participated, whether it be in the YouTube chat or on Twitter, whatever it might be. We got the season starting next week. So that reminds me, Big Jeff's Insights will be on Wednesday night next week. Next week is Wednesday night for Big Jeff's Insights because we have the Thursday night game. So, Big Jeff, you want to tell people what you're doing for your episodes during the season?
Yeah, it can be multiple, but one thing for sure, I'm going to choose 3 or 5 of the most compelling games and really talk about the point spread and why I think one team or the other, in essence, is going to cover that spread. So, and we'll track how I do and everything. So it will be good. And I'll explain people the philosophies I've used in the past and everything, and some key things that you can do to just be a better picker against the spread and start to think like Vegas thinks. So I think it'll be good starting next week. So yeah, and follow me at Big Jeff's FT Ball. Tell your friends about us too, right? We want to make you the most knowledgeable Big Ten fan around. We're trying to cover all the Big Ten teams, talk about all the Big Ten teams. So definitely looking to, expand the number of people to get in the conversation, and we appreciate you being here.
For sure. We appreciate it. If you're listening on podcast, you will get that right after the episode is over. So as soon as I get everything edited and put together, you'll just go ahead and get it. I won't even wait until the mornings on Thursday mornings or anything like that. So during the season, I'll just post those that night right away. So if you're somebody who's over there in California and it's 9 o'clock at night and you want to listen to a podcast or something like that, the option will be there for you because those games will be coming up quick during the season. Whether it's on Wednesday night when we go or Thursday night, I'll just go ahead and post these Big Jeff Insight episodes right away. All right, Jeff, thanks for being here. Everybody, thanks for listening. Have a good one, and you can expect a video from us tomorrow morning of the 9-game SEC schedule. We're going to go through, talk about that, what it means to the Big Ten, how it impacts the Big Ten. So you can catch that tomorrow morning as well. Podcast should be out for that tomorrow morning too. Thanks, everybody. Have a good one.